Good day, fellow rockers and moshers. Welcome to the Metal connection to all things metal. I'm J-Dub, and today on the show we are doing a Rob Zombie album ranking with some guests here. And I think I'll just go ahead and have the guests introduce themselves here. And Clint, there, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Clint or Cthulhu. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Cool, cool. And then we can next there. You want to go next?
And I'm Matt. Good to meet y'all.
I'm Jody. Good to meet everybody.
Okay, cool, great. And so yeah, we're going to be doing a Rob Zombie album ranking today, and I think we'll just go ahead here, and we're going to start here from least favorite to favorite. And I think the fun part for viewers watching here is we all guess the guests here and myself. We didn't discuss who's ranking which. So for anyone following along, how you rank your Rob Zombie album ranking, let us know in the comments, and we can have all the conversation and see how everyone ranks the Rob Zombie albums. So let's get going here. And if Clint, if you want to start first with your least favorite Rob Zombie album.
All right, if I had to go, my least favorite would have to be Educated Horses. I would have to say that album to me seemed a little rushed and a little bit, just it was slower pace after coming off of such great albums, before. And it just didn't, I never vibed with it. It just kind of just lingered. And it was like slower pace. Zombie's voice sounded like it was out. It just didn't sound like he had the passion in for it, because at that time, he was directing, movies and kind of getting into that business. So he kind of lost his flair. The lyrics seemed a little cringe, is a nice way of putting it, I guess. And like, it just really never vibed with me. And it just like was never really, what's a good way of putting it? I just never really connected with it. And like, I bought it brand new the day it came out, because at the time, Rob Zombie was my favorite artist. I was so excited, new Rob Zombie. I bought that CD, listened to it once, took it to school with me the next day, and like one of my friends at school was like, "Hey, I'll give you $3 for that CD." I was like, "Done, sold."
I'm 100% with Clint on this one. Educated Horses is also my least favorite zombie album. I've been a zombie fan from back in the day, before he was solo with White Zombie, and I always loved that he seemed to have a sense of humor. I loved that he was connected to sort of like almost a horror movie, psychedelic vibe. And then when Educated Horses came out, the dreadlocks had been combed out. He'd like kind of cleaned and modernized his image a little bit. It felt like he was trying too hard to connect with younger, hotter metal fans, which isn't what the music is about. And I didn't feel like it had the sense of humor as the other albums. I went to I believe he toured it, and I went to those shows, and again, not his strongest performance.
Well, I'm going to change things up a bit. My least favorite, I'm going to say it, the Electric Warlock, Acid Witch, Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser. Yeah, that's my least favorite. I find the first 5 tracks start off pretty lackluster and average, and it's a lot of filler in that album. I find there are very few positives. Like, I don't hate the album. I'm making it sound worse than it is, but yeah, out of the 7, that's my least favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if you're done there, yeah, absolutely. I actually agree, and totally. I actually have Acid Warlock as my least favorite as well. I don't actually dislike it. I generally like all the Rob Zombie albums. I do find that there is a lot of filler and a lot of goofy kind of, kind of just want to goofy, goof off 2 minute tracks. Like, by the time the song gets going and you're a minute in and, it's going to end in a minute. There's not much going on in a 2.5 2 minute song. So, it's a decent album, but again, something has to go last here, and I put it my last. Yeah, so that's about that. And next up, Clint, if you want to keep her going here.
All right, if I had to pick my second least would have to be Hellbilly Deluxe 2. He kind of returned the form, but you could tell he still wasn't kind of getting back into character. He was still, coming off, directing movies again. But he just kind of like, you could tell he was trying, but it was trying too hard to recapture what the first album brought. And it just, to me, it seemed like it shouldn't have been a Hellbilly Deluxe 2. Like he shouldn't have, he's just trying to write off of like, old material. You listen to the guitar riffs, they're kind of sound that kind of same kind of like signatures, you kind of hear the same kind of beat, kind of same, and you're like, come on, you can do better than this. And the lyrics like Sick Bubblegum, and
Yeah.
other ones, just the lyrics weren't there, like when I think of Rob Zombie, I think of like good old fun, like old monster movies or, B horror movies, that's his strong point, when he writes about like stuff like that. But then he puts like a sexual twist to them. But on that album, it's just he's trying too hard, and it just wasn't fun. It was like I said, with the last one, it was kind of cringe. It was just he was trying to like, popularize his music, like trying to find something that just, more mainstream kind of words and stuff like that. It didn't seem as creative. And it just like his ambition on it it didn't seem like he was really wanting to do that album, because like that was the album I heard the least amount of buzz for. He was more worried about at the time, I think it was Lords of Salem, or it might have been, yeah, it was like Lords of Salem, I think was about to drop. And he was more worried about the production of the movie and discussing that. And then like last month before that CD came out, then you heard a little bit of buzz. But that was all you heard, was just not very much. And like I tried to listen to it again today, and I just had to take it out midway because I was like, man, this just ain't good. It ain't the Zombie I grew up with that got me into music and, really changed. It just was not fun. It ain't him. It seemed like, he's trying to ride something that he's not trying to. That's all I gotta say.
I think
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, for sure. And actually, there was a bunch of guest spots on that album, right? So, maybe he was kind of divvying out some of the, band commitments. Maybe some other people, and rest in peace, Joey Jordison, I believe, was all over that album. He's on 2 or 3 tracks, I believe, and who is some other guy? I think Jast is on that album. Is he? No. But yeah, I know Joey Jordison played drums on that album for a couple tracks. So, he brought in some guests for that album. So maybe he was exploring some other options through other people, or if he brought those ideas to Joey, or if Joey had the ideas. I'm not really sure how that all panned out, but I dig that album for sure.
Yeah, I went a little bit of a different direction with this spot in my list, which was I carved out this to kind of put all the sort of remix albums and collections and sort of his efforts to sort of re-engineer his music in general, I love how brave he is with that. I don't think it's always especially successful, but it's brave and you get some new sounds. I definitely think it's better. His efforts to remix and remake his music are better than something like Educated Horses, which felt like gloss that wasn't authentic. I thought Hellbilly 2 was a little better than Clint did, but for me, my second least favorite are his various remixes. So you've got like the Mondo album. I think the most notable one was American Made Music to Strip By, which had some fun songs in it, but I felt like didn't really capture his spirit. So that was my second.
So what's your second to least favorite album?
I would say you could say American Made Music to Strip By would be my second to least.
Right. Remix album. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We can go with that. And yeah, Jody, if you want to start up with your next one here.
I sort of had a tough time picking my sixth and fifth, but I'm going with Educated Horses on this one. I had a tough time with it in the regards that I love the songs American Witch and Let It All Bleed Out. I think those are two amazing songs by him, but there were too many tracks that I thought were a waste of time, like Sawdust in the Blood, 100 Ways. Both were like a minute and a half, minute 50 seconds. Just a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I'm not particularly fond of his movie namesake tracks. Although I gotta say, Lords of Salem track is a lot better than the movie because I thought the movie was garbage. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I remember that movie. It was okay. It started. I think I do remember it. It started out great, and then it kind of the back half kind of fell apart a bit. I don't know if anyone else's opinions on that movie or if they remember that movie.
there is no redeeming qualities as far as I'm concerned to that movie at all.
Oh, Jody, there is a redeeming quality to that film, and it's Sherry Moon Zombie. I mean, she is phenomenal, and frankly, I'll watch all sorts of garbage to have her on the screen.
Okay. Well,
And if you want another redeeming quality, watch Three from Hell.
Okay.
You know, Three from
I
Hell.
like that a lot better than as much. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next up, yeah, this might be controversial. Well, this hasn't been picked yet, so I think it's going to be controversial here. But my second to least favorite, maybe due to time restraints, because it is new. But my second to least favorite, this album. I mean, freaking Lunar Injection. You know, it's got a huge ass name. These album names get a little goofy after a while. But anyway, Lunar Injection, my second to least favorite. Again, I do generally like it. It's great. My big problem is, you know, there is a bunch of pre-intro filler tracks and goofy tracks that you got to get through to find the good songs. But there is a ton of great songs on this album. There's probably 10 actually great songs on this album. But again, it is skipping through all the intros and all the crap to get to those 10 songs. So I think I am downgrading it just for the fact that I have to deal with so much crap to get to the good stuff. But it's something that has, something has to go second to last, and maybe it is. Maybe if we do this next year or something, that this might go up in my ranking. But as for now, I am sticking this here with my second to least favorite, just based on the fact that I'm not a fan of a million pre-intros and tons of filler and things like that. So I think I've actually put it down a notch just for that fact. But I will fully say that there is 10 great songs. So if you got anytime you got 10 good songs in an album, that's a good album. So by no means am I saying this is a bad album. I just thought there was no need for, what is there, six intro song, like six 1 minute intro style songs where if they're just kind of meaningless. So, once you do skim through all that crap, it is great. I don't know, obviously you guys are going to have your opinions on it, so I guess we'll kind of get to that. But yeah, it's kind of that for that. And yeah, I'm done. I'm kind of finished with that.
Jamie, that album does bring up an idea that I've had where somebody needs to create a Rob Zombie album random name generator. Where you've got, Lunar Injection, Acid, Kool-Aid Eclipse, you've got Venomous Rat Regenerate, you've got Electric Warlock, Acid, Satanic Orgies. You could create a algorithm that just like spits out Rob Zombie album names. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
You might get an app idea and be a millionaire.
Someone's doing that right now, making a Rob Zombie a meme album generator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Clint, there, if you want to go next with your next pick.
All right, I'd have to say Acid Witch is my third least favorite. I'd have to see, like you were saying that was your least favorite. That one to me, it seemed like it was the start of him coming back to form. Him coming back to full circle where, like he started getting back into like writing about like B horror movies and having fun again. It seemed like he was kind of more focused on that album. Like there's your weird songs like Everybody's Fucking in the UFO. There is your weird tracks, but I mean, you always hear about people getting fucked in a UFO, so it makes sense. And all around that album, it seemed like he kind of like, he stepped it up a notch. Like I'll have to give it to John Fives on his solos on that album are fire. And like it seemed like John Five actually had fun writing that album too. It seemed like he started getting kooky and just like the wordplay he used on that one. It wasn't just straightforward. It seemed like it was return to form. And I mean, it ain't the best album, it ain't the worst one, but it just seemed like he was having fun again making music or starting to. It just like he was wanting to do something for the kind of getting back into like the lyrically, kind of like the White Zombie back to form too, lyrically. And yeah, that's what I have to say about it. I actually enjoy it. It ain't the best, but I mean, it ain't definitely ain't the worst. It seemed like he was just kind of coming back to form on that one.
That's definitely fair. Yeah.
Nice. I agree with Clint on that one. My next is Hellbilly 2, and I think we already talked about that quite clearly. It's not the most focused effort, but I think there are some super fun songs on it. And I've been listening to Mars Needs Women quite a lot lately because I just think it's fun. It's got a good groove. And I think it's a great album. But Clint, I'm right with you in that Lunar will be my next one.
I'm with Matt on Hellbilly Deluxe 2 is my next pick.
Oh wow.
Um, unlike Matt, I'm not a big fan of Mars Needs Women. I don't know why, just didn't jive with me that much. The songs I did like on it were Werewolf Baby and Burn. I felt were the standout ones on it, but they weren't too crazy standout or like not epic zombie, but they're good tracks. I like the groove to them. Sick Bubblegum was okay, but it's kind of got the cheese to it.
It's insanely fun live. Sick Bubblegum is one of those songs where you listen to it on an album and you're like, "Meh," and then you see it and you're like, really good, really good.
When it transitions better at a live show. Yeah, I just thought it was my pick over Educated Horses was just more because I felt it was slightly more solid the whole way through than Educated Horses, even though, like I said, Educated Horses had those two great hits as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, that's my take on Hellbilly Deluxe 2.
All right, yeah, that's cool. All right, I guess I'll go next here. And yeah, my next favorite, I suppose we're calling this, is yeah, Educated Horses. Sorry. I actually found this album to be growing on me over time. I know when it first came out, you kind of want more of a metally Rob Zombie, things like that. I did find over the past 2 or 3 years, it's grown on me much more. Uh, with needing more music to listen to and just kind of scrounging and perusing through past music to look for things you'd looked over in the past. And I definitely found Educated Horses was one of those albums where it's grown on me the past couple of years, where I generally like most of the tunes on the album here. And I know Clint here kicked off the show with his Educated Horses, and he was saying how he was in his movie phase. And yeah, I totally agree. He is in his movie. He probably was in his movie phase during that album. And I actually really dig those tracks that he did. The Devil's Rejects and Lords of Salem are both on this. And Lords of Salem especially is a great live track. It really pumps that. It really pumps that tune up. I know actually I kind of when I anytime I actually want to hear that the Lords of Salem, I actually listen to a live version. I found the live version totally turns that song into an anthemic beast of a track. So if that's something you guys have overlooked, that's definitely a great thing to recheck out. Yeah, no, I definitely generally found this album to be to kind of grow on you with more listens. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, good stuff on this album. Not the best, not maybe the least favorite for some, but it wasn't my least favorite, and it's not my favorite. It's a decent album. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that on specifically the soundtrack song, the Lords of Salem song. Does anyone got any thoughts on that?
I'm definitely going to go back and revisit it with your recommendation.
Yeah, I'm planning to go buy it at some point, if I find it cheap enough again, because it's weird. Like if you see my music collection, like it's by, I have them so organized, and it's weird just having an empty spot right there where it belongs. So I'll have to rebuy it eventually and just kind of go back and listen to it.
Yeah, that's totally fair as well. Yeah, even me, like I said, when the album first came out, I did kind of brush it off to the side. That was kind of a weird year for metal in general. I find, well, I don't know what the hell year was this? 2008. 2008 was a little weird, but yeah, it's kind of grown on me last couple of years, and yeah, I surprisingly have it over his newer album, but yeah, I kind of already talked about why I had that album below this album, but yeah, I guess we'll keep it rolling here. Clint, if you want to go next with your next pick.
All right, my next pick is going to be a little bit of controversy, I think. I'm gonna have to say because like I haven't listened to this album in years, and went back today and listened to it again, and I like it more now than I did, but it's still in the same spot. Is if I can speak, Sinister Urge. Like that album, it was like coming off of like Hellbilly and everything White Zombie did. I just was like, what is this? Like, and plus when that album came out, I was going through kind of a rough patch. And give me 1 second. Okay, boy. Sorry about that. You're gonna have to edit that out.
No, I'm not editing that out.
And like discussing, God, where was I? Like I was kind of going through like a lot at that time when that album dropped. And like the lyrics were kind of like all about drugs. And at that time, I'm an open book. I don't give a fuck. My mom was on meth, heroin, pill popping. So like those lyrics were just kind of sensitive to me. Like that's what that album was about, all kinds of like drugs and stuff like that. And, my parents were getting divorced around that time. And, that album it just like there's like standout tracks like Mouth of Hell. That track is incredible. I mean, that's a fun song live. It's just all around a good song. But a lot of that album, I just was like, not really a fan of at the time. But I went back and listened to it today with the open book, and I liked it more now than I did then. And that will be my piece on that album.
I think Clint makes a really good point in that how an album hits you has a lot to do with where you're at in your life and sort of what music you need at the time. And if what you're listening to isn't speaking to where you're at, it can hit in a way that isn't intended. That album's a lot higher on my list. But I could see that if you weren't vibing with it, it would be a tough listen. For me, we're kind of right in the middle of the pack here, and we're all Rob Zombie fans. So it's not like we dislike any of these albums. It's more that we have strong favorites, and for me, this is where right in the middle is where the sort of psychedelic monster metal albums that he's been doing recently all land, and they all land there together. So my fifth pick is the Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Acid Eclipse Conspiracy. Not only is the name word salad, but the album feels like music salad. But it's a trip. And I feel like that's all he really wants right now is to take us on a trip, for things to feel deeply strange the whole time you're listening to it. And for me, this album really nailed that. So for the next few picks, I'll be surfing the psychedelic monster metal albums.
How are you with all those pre-intros and all those kind of goofy tracks to get to the good tracks, or do you like all those intros as an atmospheric kind of build up?
Good question, Jamie. These three albums, Lunar, Venomous, and Electric, I can't listen to them as individual songs. Like to me, they're almost like 50-minute songs where it's just you surf the whole thing. So I don't even really like pull apart or identify those intros. It's just I'm going where he's taking me.
Right, right. Okay, yeah, totally. Yeah, you're in it for the ride. You hit play, you're in it for the ride. The atmospheric, intros are kind of just carrying over to the next song, and it doesn't really bother you too much, it sounds like, or anything like that.
It's got a little bit of a cinematic quality.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas like we're cutting to a different scene or we're cutting to a different sound.
Yeah. He definitely does veer in a lot of different directions on that album. Like, I know there's one track where it's like kind of like a country western kind of hard rock jam, and then the next one will be metal, then the next one's kind of a hippie jam. I know I found there's a lot of hippie vibes on this album, right? I don't know if anyone else was kind of feeling that, but
Yep.
and you
Like,
can totally get that sense when you see him live the last couple of years, the way he dresses, right? He's coming out with the big flare pants and all that kind of sort of thing. So he's definitely still influenced by the old 60, the old 30s, 40s horror movies and things like that, kind of mixed in with his newer hippie type stuff. So he's kind of just blending his influences basically together at this point.
Well, and the fringes and a lot of that style, like his fringe jackets and a lot of the sort of like psychedelic colors, they all go with that style.
and on that note, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And I believe we may have got lost in the conversation, but we left off with Matt. Did you make your last pick?
I did. It was lunar. It was
Right.
lunar.
Right. So then, Jody, if you want to continue off here.
I'm taking right after Matt. The lunar injection is my pick as well for number 4. I love the way it starts, the expanding the head of Zed. I think that's a really good intro. The Triumph of King Freak is an awesome song. I think that's great. Shadow of the Cemetery Man is another great one off there, and Get Loose I also liked. The negatives are the interludes, like Jamie said. I wasn't a big fan of Bring Over the Dull Earth. To me, it's a dull track. And yeah, Metamorphosis one track, that was a sleeper too to me. But yeah, that's all I pretty well got to say about Lunar Injection.
Okay. Yeah, I know when I actually was originally talked with you about the album when it came out, and we were talking about it. I actually was guessing that you were going to have it higher, yeah, because you when it came out, you were quite high on it, right? And I know I was ragging on about all the little goofy intros and things like that, and you're like, it's fine. But so it's interesting to see that it's made its way kind of mid pack for you. I wasn't sure if you were going to have it higher or lower, so it was cool to see where you have put it. Here as I think the album's been out for like almost a year now, basically. So it's cool to see how well this album has sat with all of us here in the past year, considering it is fairly new.
Yeah, I would still say it's one of my favorite albums from this year, but when I compare it to his other classic albums, to me, they're higher, of course.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Hello, guys.
Oh, yeah, cool. Well, I guess next, we're definitely getting into the mid-pack things here stuff. So again, generally none of these albums are bad. They got to go somewhere, and I was trying to get this album maybe higher, but my top 3 are kind of solid as is. So even though this did come out in peak years for me, I think I was peak in high school, peak into metal. This is 2002, no, 2000. 2001, second album, 2001. I was right in the middle of high school right there, so I expected maybe this should have been higher for me based on nostalgia, but some of the newer albums he's done has gone a little bit higher over this album. But in general, my next pick here is Sinister Urge. Yeah, it's a great album in general. I know, Ozzy's on this, on the Ironhead song, Ironhead. And there's not really too much throwaway tracks or any. We've got that Red Red Groovy song, to carry us into the next tune. But yeah, I definitely like this album. I do find myself holding off on it just because I probably played it to death when I was younger. Just in that peak year of high schools, I probably played this album to death. So I probably toned back on it a little bit here in the last couple of years, but it's definitely still has a place for me to remain high enough. So I still enjoy this album a ton, and I definitely appreciate the fact that there wasn't much filler, there wasn't much goofy tracks on here. It's definitely it's not as serious as Hellbilly Deluxe 1. I think he kind of toned it back in terms of he's like, okay, I'm gonna maybe drop the dark themes on Hellbilly Deluxe and just do more of a stripped down fun album. Hence why he brought on Ozzy. He's got that Red Red Groovy song. So he's keeping it kind of lighthearted on this album, but I still find it fun in general. Yeah. There we go with that. And yeah, Clint, I don't know if you remember where you left off, if you want to carry us here with your next pick.
We're on number 4. No, we're on number 3. Okay, mine would have to be Lunar. My bad, guys. I'm kind of like, I'd have to say number 3 would have to be Lunar, because I mean this one to me, it seemed like he came back and he's like, people have been like wanting to hear the White Zombie sound since White Zombie's been gone. He brought that back on that album. He brought some of that White Zombie vibes, like you were saying, hippie vibes. White Zombie had those kind of like a little bit of hippie, vibes to their music. Those, and at the time, like I was discussing with the Sinister Urge, I didn't like that album because there was a lot of that album was about a lot about drugs and stuff at the time when I was listening to it when I was younger. Now I've explored acid. That album is a perfect album to go listen to while you're doing acid. That's like the Lunar Eclipse, because it has that kind of like voodoo, that, like you're right, and it's very diverse. Like one minute you're like banging your head, the next album you're just like dazed and confused. You're just but then you'll hear like his vocals sounded like he actually put an effort to actually like get his vocals to actually like the best I think the best his vocals have sounded since Hellbilly Deluxe. Like, it sounded like he actually put the effort into getting his vocals in shape on this album. He sounded strong. It could be all editing work for all I know too, but to me, it sounded like he was more focused. It was like he was having fun again, like the lyrics, yeah, are out there and weird, but it seemed like he was actually having fun making music again. And like, especially on this album, I think John 5 really got the show. Because John 5, I mean, since he's been in Rob Zombie, John 5 hasn't really John 5'd anything in Rob Zombie's music. It's been like Rob Zombie's kind of show and John 5's kind of in the background. On this album, it seems like John 5 actually got a little more say so, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I can be wrong. It seemed like John 5 like really kind of musically got more input on this album, because you got to hear the acoustic stuff. You got to hear the twangy stuff. That's John 5 all over. you know, and he got fun with the lyrics again. You know, he was singing about monsters and it just seemed like it was all a great, good mix, and it seemed like just he was kind of getting, at this time he seemed more focused and creative than he's been in a good long minute, and that's why I'm excited for like the next album and see what it brings. Thank y'all.
Yeah, I'd like to play off what Clint was just saying there in the sense, like these psychedelic monster albums do feel very much like a return to some of that white zombie aesthetic, some of the, you know, craziness and chaos and willing to mess with the norms of metal, and I think Rob Zombie is pretty brave that way. Um, so that bringing me into the top picks, I actually put the Electric Warlock Acid Wish Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser up there because it's a trip, and that's I think all he really wanted is and it was a departure from anything normal, anything normative. I think it started, I'm not sure if it or Venomous Rat Regeneration Vendor started his psychedelic phase, but it really feels like a piece with Lunar Injection, and I enjoy those albums. I mean, they are not for the uninitiated. Like if someone was like, "Boy, I'd really like to get into Rob Zombie," I would not recommend these three albums, but I find them really, really entertaining. And like I was discussing with Jamie, they're very much you push play and you're going on a ride. And I couldn't name a single song from one of those three albums, but I enjoy them.
Yeah, totally. And kind of backtracking a bit to when Clint made his pick, um, he was saying that he kind of felt he felt re-energized by the newest album, and I think that is kind of a good sign, and you can totally tell because looking at the track list, he did pump out you know what 10, 15 songs, even though some of them were intros, but the fact that he was able to produce, or not produce, but put out, good quality 10, 11, 12 tracks is a good sign, kind of compared to the previous album. The Acid Warlock album is very short. It's I think it's 30 minutes max playlist. 30 minutes max of playtime. So like maybe 25 minutes. So, that maybe he was maybe not as focused on that Warlock, but then maybe he was a little bit more focused. Clint was thinking on the next album, and I was kind of just thinking, well, maybe that is kind of true because, on Acid Warlock, he only did about maybe 10 songs, and a couple songs are intros, so you're only left with 25 minutes after, as opposed to his newest album. He was able to come up with 10, I think there's 17, I think it's an 18 track list song. Again, a lot of it's intros and things like that, but he definitely came up with, he definitely had, it seemed like he had a little bit more ideas on that newer one, but it could have just been completely random where, oh, well, this album's 20 minutes. Oh, well, the next one's half an hour. There's no rhyme or reason to Rob Zombie really in general. And I think that is the cool part, that there is no rhyme or reason to Rob Zombie. One album might be 20 minutes. One album might be half an hour. One might be serious. One might be hippie. One might be rock. One might be psychedelic. Things like that. So, that's kind of why we're all doing this. That's why we're all fans. And yeah, good discussion so far. And I don't know if I think Matt, you did officially make your pick with the Acid Warlock. I am surprised that you do have that high. That's so high. But if you are playing it straight through, it is kind of. I do like it in general. I think I did do a full playthrough. I think just today or yesterday on it, and yeah, definitely nothing bad to say about it. I'm familiar with pretty well the whole album in general. That's definitely still a good album. And yeah, so Jody, if you want to pick her up here with your next pick.
My pick at number 3 is going to be Hellbilly Deluxe.
Oh.
I know.
Controversy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought we were all just gonna have a full on. Okay, our number one is. I thought that was set, but it's not set, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, even though he hits you with that definitive Rob Zombie uh, trifecta of Super Beast and Dragula and Living Dead Girl, killer tracks. Um, there is, once again, a lot of mediocre interludes in this album that just brought it down for me. And
Teardrops.
I love Demonoid Phenomenon, Spook Show Baby, and Meet the Creeper. But I find everything after Meet the Creeper is either subpar or just average, I find. So that's really my negatives that kind of brought that album down.
Right. Do you tie any? I guess it's clear you don't tie any nostalgia to that album at all because that would have came out when you were younger, obviously, and yeah, it doesn't hold much nostalgia value to you. You are able to separate the past feelings to mixed in with his new albums, and it doesn't matter for you. It's just
Yeah, I guess I was able to separate it. Like, although, like we sort of said, like this list could change for me in a month from now. It just depends on my mood. But as of this week, that's how I felt. Hellbilly Deluxe 3, or the original, is at number 3 for me.
wow.
Yeah.
That was probably the big shocker of this episode already, and it sounds like you're done with that. No, next up for me, I think you've all have picked this already, so I might have this the highest. I think I do have the highest out of everyone, and I guess I'm gonna have to explain why. But my next favorite is Hellbilly Deluxe 2. I absolutely love this album. This is probably one of my more listened to Rob Zombie albums in the last 5 years. I just love this album. I know Clint was touching on John. He was mentioning John 5 a lot, and that's actually great because it kind of helped me remember to bring up John 5 as well. And for me, this is John 5's coming out party on a Rob Zombie album. This is where John 5 brings all his influences, his weird, wacky, like John 5's kind of like a boonies hillbilly, kind of out there kind of guy, and he's bringing a lot of those weird kind of twangy riffs and things like that to this album. Yeah, totally great album. Love this album. John 5's all over this album, and I think it served Rob Zombie incredible on this album. There's some guest spots on this album. I kind of just forget who's on this album, but yeah, I generally love this album. Full of great songs, full of a good vibe, and kind of keeps the flow going good. And yeah, I totally love this album.
Well, and to build on that a little bit, Jamie, I think one of the things about that album, even though it was low on my list, is that it sneaks up on you.
Mhm.
Is that every now and then I'll get hit with one of those songs and I'll be like, this song is super fun. And I'll go back to double check, hey, which album was that? And then I'm like, Hellbilly 2 again? Really? So that's cool.
I will be honest, when it came out, I didn't fully pay it. Like, I paid attention to it, but not as much because you read the Hellbilly Deluxe 2 and you're thinking, okay, he's naming this Hellbilly Deluxe 2. Is this he's going to try for another Hellbilly Deluxe, and it's going to be impossible to live up to that Hellbilly Deluxe. So already you're going into it with the thought of, hey, it's going to have to be as good as Hellbilly Deluxe, or else why name it Hellbilly Deluxe? So I think that's where maybe some people have maybe written that album off just based off maybe going into it you with the name. Okay, well it's going to have to live up to a Hellbilly Deluxe one, and upon the first few listens, it may not appear like it, but um, yeah, I found it incredible actually.
It
Especially with John Five's kind of I love that really twangy thing that he's got going on in his album. A lot of that twangy hard rock, he's blending it with metal. Definitely serves Rob Zombie great here. But yeah, that's where I am with that.
it's interesting though that, and I find it ironic that for a guy who's got a lot of sort of remix albums and efforts to kind of reconceptualize his music, those albums all have like really good original titles. And then I saw Hellbilly Deluxe 2 and I was like, oh great, another remix album. Like Hellbilly Deluxe was great. I don't need a remix of it. And then it's like it's its own album. And it is funny that he gives a really germane title to a pretty original album. Um, and if you're loving the twangs and the some of that acoustic stuff, the acoustic intro to Mars Needs Women is absolutely bizarre and totally awesome. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, and this is the album that has Joey Jordison on I think two or three tracks, and I know a huge deluxe edition came out of this album with some bonus tracks, and the bonus tracks are great too. If people are able to get a hold of those, well, you can probably go on YouTube and just check them out just quickly for anybody watching or whatever. But I know that album came out with a deluxe edition, and there's some great bonus tracks on that as well. So, Clint, if you want to go next here, and we're getting up here with our basically our top twos now. So, what was your second favorite Rob Zombie album?
Number 2 is Rat. Rat Regeneration.
Rat Vendor Regeneration.
Yeah.
The venomous rat regeneration vendor.
Because like that album to me, Rob Zombie sounded strong on that album. His vocals, he came back to form. That's what I like when I heard that album. That's exactly like his. It was like right after Hellbilly Deluxe 2. I thought this is what Return to Form sounded like to me. This is what I think Hellbilly Deluxe 2 should have been, in my opinion. And like, there's a lot of standout tracks on that album. Like one of my it's probably like in my top 5 favorite Rob Zombie songs, or like probably my top 3 actually. Teenage Nosferatu, that track is incredible. That song's fun. It sounded like everything Rob Zombie's ever done. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll and monsters. Everything Zombie's about. That album just, to me, it just, listening to that album, whenever I first heard it, I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting much because like the last couple of albums have been like, eh. And I put that one in and I was like, banging my head like instantly. I was like, yes. And me and my friend, like we heard like the first song, that Teenage Nosferatu. And literally, like I bought it. I was riding with my friend. He was driving. We just went to the record store. I bought that CD, put it in a CD player, and we literally kept that song on repeat and listened to the rest of it. We put that song on repeat like 4 times. Like after it was over, we did it again. Didn't listen to the other tracks until later. We just went back and listened to that one and turned it up loud whenever we were at stoplights and screaming it at people instantly because it's catchy and it's fun. And people were like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? And, like seeing a guy like my friend wearing a big old black trench coat and, long hair, me and my big old gauges and long hair. And at that time I had my lips pierced and stuff like that. People are like, and black, lipstick, eyeliner. People are like, oh my God, it's Satan worshipers. And we were like, we didn't care. And then like, that album just to me holds a special place in my heart because that album sounded like he was having fun again. He got in the groove, like it was his start of his like white zombie image slowly coming back, and like it wasn't like tie-ins with movies. It wasn't tie-ins with anything he's done. I was like, it just was all around just a great, fun album, and it sounded like he was more focused. The lyrics had more to them instead of like the name of the track and then the chorus and then repeat. He actually literally seemed like he actually really had to sit down and think actually like lyrics on this one. That's my opinion on it. And like the music on it, just it's catchy, it's loud, it's obnoxious, an all around fun album to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is a super focused album, and yeah, I won't touch too much on it because we still have to make our picks here. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with pretty much everything you said in terms of it's super focused and heavy and things like that. So yeah, if anyone else got anything to chime in there about that, but
I definitely agree. I agree with Clint in that it's the most focused. I think it's the best of that sort of the trilogy of his sort of three most recent albums, and I really love it too.
yeah, great. And you might as well keep it going with your next pick, actually.
So we're in the top two. So my second pick would be Sinister Urge, and just how that album hit Clint in a point of his life when he really didn't want or need to hear it. For me, that album came out when I really needed an album like that. I needed an album that was heavy. It was Rob Zombie. It was fun. It was still fun. Ironhead is one of my favorite songs ever. I thought that collaboration was both surprising and really, really great. And that album just crushed for me. So that would be my second.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of had a feeling or a sense that you were gonna have that really high. I don't know why. Probably because maybe your age at the time when it came out as well. Maybe that might have been peak high school years for you or whatever. But I kind of had a feeling that might have been high for you for whatever reason. And yeah,
Yeah, it was a great album.
oh, totally.
I agree with nowadays. Like when I went back and listened to it, it is a great album. Just at the time, I was going through a lot at that time, and I didn't know how to comprehend it.
Yeah, totally. Oh well, Joey, here we go with your second pick.
My second pick is going to be much like Clint, Venomous Rat Regeneration Bender. I find there's very few negatives about that album. It's a fun album all around, as Clint said. Teenage Nosferatu Pussy, Revelation Revolution, and Behold the Pretty Filthy Creatures.
I love that song.
Yeah. And Gang Gang Gong, the rest of it. Those are my favorite standout tracks on the album. Yeah, really, there isn't too much negative for me to say about that album. I thought it was a great, fun album. And those were the standouts for me.
Yeah, and I actually pretty well agree, and I actually have it as my second favorite album as well. I found this is the album where Rob Zombie brought the heavy back. Just the tailing off from Hellbilly Deluxe 1. Well, it sounds a little bit more modern, but this could have easily came out right after in terms of the direction he was with the first album in terms of pretty heavy stuff. So he was right back to getting with the heavy stuff, super focused. To touch on maybe just my least favorite, going back to Acid Witch. we got Acid Witch is 25 minutes. Most of the songs are 2.5 minutes. But this Rob Zombie album. He's back to the 4 minute real, full on songs. As Clint was saying, the writing was back, and maybe he was a little bit more focused. He wasn't in between movies. He wasn't promoting anything. So maybe he was a little bit more focused. He spent a little bit more time. Also, John 5 is helping uh, helping a lot of the times with these newer albums. So maybe that is another reason that maybe some of the songs ended up at normal paced or normal length times. So yeah, I definitely love this album. I would enjoy to play this any day of the week in general. Every song is pretty well good. Yeah, super heavy Rob Zombie for sure. Definitely check it out. Yeah.
So that album is number 2 for all 3 of you and number 3 for me. And the only reason I put Sinister ahead of it is because I'm old.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's definitely a kind of a consensus that if anyone watching glossed over this album or somehow missed it, this is definitely probably an album that you definitely would have to check out. Definitely an essential Rob Zombie album if it's something you did miss. Because yeah, if we, all of us kind of came to a consensus, it's in our top 3. So it's definitely there. In terms of one of his better albums, that's for sure. And so, Clint, I guess here we are with our number 1, and well, it's obviously no surprise what's going on here with our number 1s, as well. We're only left with one left, so yeah, take it away there, Clint.
Except Jody. I'm dying to know what Jody picked. I'm dying.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna get to that, right?
All right. Number one for me, yeah, is the original OG Hellbilly Deluxe. That album, before that album came out, like the kind of it's what really got me into extreme music. It's really what kind of brought in like music for me all in general. Like before that, I was like obsessed with Kiss. Like at Low Short, my family's all kind of like cowboy music, like, country and stuff like that. And kind of like how I got into rock it was like I was probably about 5 or 6 years old. And I was, laying on the couch with my dad, he's watching New Year's Rockin' Eve, and he kind of falls asleep because John Fogerty was playing, and my dad wanted to see, John Fogerty play. He fell asleep. John Fogerty plays. Kiss gets on, and I was like, "Wow, this is cool." Monsters are playing music, and until I kind of like got a little, I was obsessed with Kiss, and then like when I heard like White Zombie. As I got a little older, my brother was like really into like White Zombie and listened to him. I was like, this is okay. But then, I saw whenever Hellbilly Deluxe came out, whenever I saw the music video for Dragula, I saw the horror movie aspect of it. I saw like the theater that went behind the music video. It was big, it was loud, it was obnoxious, and it was at the time a little scary. I was like, okay, this is like a Stephen King music, if Stephen King had music. And I was like, and I like with my dad, I used to watch like all the old black and white monster movies, like the old Dracula, Wolfman. I grew up with that, so it kind of seeing them like make cameos in that music video was like I could connect with it, or like, and it was still silly, like Abbott and Costello meet, the old monster movies. It had that old school, monster, and I was obsessed with monsters. That's why I just obsessed with monsters, scary movies, and it was like everything I wanted in a blender, and it just came off, and I just was like, and before that, I wanted to be a drummer. I thought I would want to be a drummer. I begged for a drum set, but I heard that Rob Zombie signature, that kind of raspy, you know, get in my dragon, la, kind of that raspy. Sorry, my voice is kind of short right now, but I heard that and I was like, man, I know what I want to do. I want to be a front man. I want to have fun. I want to be a front man. The energy he brought, the fun, you could just tell this is where he belonged. And I was like, man, that's what I need to do. So I started like immediately. I was like, told my brother, I was like, we need to get that CD somehow. And he actually somehow got it. Our mom got it for him. And I actually took the CD and like I blared it every day for like a year. It got me over being obsessed with Kiss like I was. It led me getting into Korn and Slipknot, and just that album just changed my life. And if it wasn't for that album, I don't know where I'd be today, because that album gave me an outlook to get through a lot of dark places I was going through. It kind of gave me a reinformed, like it gave me an identity. It gave me to know what kind of person I am. Before that album, I didn't know what I was. I didn't know, I was kind of a kid that was picked on and messed with. And, like I remember how great that album was. I'm sorry if I'll get long winded with this album. This album just, I remember, like I said, I'm an open book. A year after that album came out, I nearly died. I wish I could see it for all you on the podcast and y'all, but I have a scar from here to here on my head. I fell 30 feet and almost died. And I hit my head and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, was in physical therapy for 3 years. And that album helped me find the rhythm in my stepping and walking again, because it's the only thing I wanted to listen to. It helps me push myself again, to live. And I remember whenever I was in the hospital and my brother comes to me, he was like, I bought the coolest toy ever today. I was like, what's that? And I thought it was the coolest thing. He bought a Rob Zombie toy and brought it to me at the hospital and set it next to my window. And he was like, this is going to be your guardian. He's going to make sure you're okay, while I'm not here at the hospital with you. Get yourself better, get yourself strong. And, he brought in a little CD player and blared that CD for me, multiple times while I was in the hospital. So that album literally got me through a lot of my life. That album, it helped me pick myself back up. I'm done.
Well, that's great to hear. That was such influential on you, especially in your formative metal years and getting, listening to metal and discovering metal. I had no idea it was so inspirational to you.
That's why I thought it was an honor for you asking me to speak on here today. I was like, man, there's a lot I could say about this album. I could keep going for like another hour, but I don't want to eat everybody's time. And, it's just, that album it's incredible. All right.
I really like the authenticity of your experience there, Clinton. I mean, I feel strongly about the album as well. It's my number one from him for sure. And I think what you were talking about is identity. It really is like, as metalheads, you have a moment where you kind of identify through the music your identity. And for me, I'd gotten into metal earlier with Metallica, but then White Zombie was the first band that kind of like scorched a groove and showed me that metal could be other things. And so then when I heard that Rob was going solo and that he and White Zombie had this really contentious relationship and didn't get along, I was quite concerned that he was going out on his own and doing his own thing. And I was somewhat trepidatious of that album because, you know, White Zombie had been my first mosh pit. They were sort of the band that was riding the raggedy edge of what was acceptable in metal at the time. You know, there were new sounds coming out. White Zombie was on one end, Pantera was on the other end, and I was quite trepidatious of Rob making music on his own. And so when Hellbilly came out, it just blew my hair back. I was like, oh my God, you know, he is phenomenal at creating this image and finding the humor and still super heaviness in the music. And you know, you took strength from like the beats and from the momentum that he creates. You know, his that album has a ton of momentum, and I think he really put a lot into that, going on his own to create momentum. And for me, that album taught me that it was okay to still have a sense of humor about it all, and to like the monsters and to enjoy the cheesiness, and for things to be really heavy and crushing, but also to be kind of fun. And sometimes I think that metalheads are all trying to out evil each other. We're mean mugging each other at shows, and everyone's, you see bands with corpse paint on, and everyone's in a contest to look more gnarly and evil than the other. And Rob was the music where I was like, this is kind of silly too, isn't it? Like in a good way, like in a let's keep it fun. You can be badass and still be super fun, and that's what Hellbilly was for me.
And that is very, very true. Going back, you know, with Hellbilly Deluxe, I've gotten, I look at it now, and like how his persona of that album could have been easily in the 80s. That image, like that Alice Cooper theater, that Wasp, it could have been in the same circle. It could have been like with Wasp. It could have been with even Motley Crue, or it was just, it brought theater back to the, music. It brought more than music. It was, you know, cinema kind of, and that's kind of like, because before that, you'll have your typical music videos, them playing in the garage, or them playing in an abandoned warehouse, them playing in, like, you'll see stuff like, your typical music videos. That's what, to me, that album showed, oh, we can get more creative. That album it brought a lot of stuff that we take for granted nowadays, and like stuff we see nowadays, and everybody's like, this is original and blah blah blah. No, if we didn't have that one Rob Zombie album, we wouldn't have a lot of the things we have today we take for granted.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That he remained really heavy with this album, and yeah, I was gonna save some of the things I wanted to say for my little bit, so I think I'll wait for that. But yeah, I guess riffing off that, I guess we might as well just go into Jody's first pick actually here, which is gonna be an interesting one for everyone, even us.
Yeah, I feel like such a downer now after you guys, like,
No.
it's so hard to go after Clint after his story. Like, that's amazing when it inspired you that much to, like, learn how to walk again to the music. That's super inspirational. But my number one pick, was the Sinister Urge. I kind of did what Jamie said, took some of the nostalgia out of it and just looked at it straight the other. And I find very little to be negative about this album. The only slight negative is the one interlude. you you guys would think I hate interludes, but I just find at times it breaks the momentum. And Transylvanian Transmission Part 1 is the only real interlude on that album. And maybe I need to start looking at it like Matt said, and just as a scene change, like from a movie. But yeah, I just thought everything else in this album is so solid. I love the intro, Sinners Inc. Thought it was a great intro. Hitting you with Demon Speeding, Dead Girl Superstar, Never Gonna Stop. Great. And Iron Head right after that. That's just slamming you right in the face, basically. Yeah, I like the fact that there are less interludes on this album. And yeah, just overall, that was a really great, solid album to me.
And Jody, I would certainly back you up. I mean, Sinister Urge was my second choice, and only because Hellbilly was explosive and exceeded expectations. But I think Sinister Urge is he had to come out swinging so hard with Hellbilly that then Sinister Urge is his like refined statement after the fact. In a way, I feel like the two albums are closely related, and I think Hellbilly was a statement, and then Sinister Urge was a phenomenal metal album.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Like, I think there are more of his defining songs on Hellbilly, for sure. Like, yeah, I would say more defining songs. I just didn't find it had the solidness the whole way through, so to speak.
Yeah. Sorry. I thought you were done there. Yeah, it sounded like you were going to tail off and be finished, but yeah, sorry about that. But no, I actually I don't know how I remember this, but I know when the album was coming out, Scum of the Earth was on the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, and I ended up getting a hold of it through interwebs back in the day, and I just remember loving that song. I still love that song, but I just totally loved that song back in the day. And yeah, I don't know how I remember it. It was specific. It was definitely specifically the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. So how I remember that after all these years, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else remembers that as well. But yeah, I remember that soundtrack was. Yeah, I remember that soundtrack was kind of. I guess new metal would have been in at the time, and actually, well, yeah, because the Metallica "I Disappear" was the lead-off single for that soundtrack. So. Mission Impossible 2 was just Mission Impossible's 2 budget must have been, grossly huge because they were tossing money to Metallica, they were tossing money to Rob Zombie. They had all this money, and that's just for the soundtrack, let alone Tom Cruise and the whole production and all that kind of crap. So Mission Impossible 2 was certainly a huge thing back in the day, and yeah, it's kind of cool that. Whatever rock, metal, and new metal was really huge at the time. That even a big, large studio as whoever did Mission Impossible 2 couldn't ignore what was going on in rock at the time, and they were forced to put Metallica, Rob Zombie, kind of a new metal-y kind of a soundtrack to that, which typically maybe with movies they don't lean in that direction. Obviously, it would be an action movie. rock music with the action makes sense. So, all that is kind of cool. Things, if nobody ever checked out the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, might be worthwhile, checking out. Obviously, I Disappear is on there. Some people hate it, some people don't. It's a whole different discussion all in itself. But yeah, that's kind of just something that random that I kind of remember about the Scum of the Earth, or that album in particular when it was coming out. Kind of, also, maybe it might have given a boost to the album. I'm not sure how far apart the song Scum of the Earth release was from the album release. I think it was kind of close, but that probably gave it a good little boost for album sales and things like that, and people being able to maybe hear about him and things like that.
Something interesting that happened there, Jamie, it's cool that you remember all that, is that the Crow soundtrack had come out years before, and the soundtrack to that movie blew everyone's hair back and was like a multi-platinum selling album. So then movie studios all started searching around for artists that could pump up their albums, and so you look at those Crow soundtracks, or you look at the Godzilla soundtrack, which was not the best of those movies, but had Rage Against the Machine on it and all kinds of other artists. And by the time you got to kind of 2001, when Mission Impossible 2 was coming out, then they were like, okay, we need some of these alternative sounds on this album. And I think, I would imagine that they got the track from Rob Zombie and were like, what the fuck is this? But it's one of the best tracks on the album, and it's one of my favorites. I mean, Scum of the Earth is phenomenal.
And like you speaking of that, it's funny. Look at like two other ones. You can say like Lost Highways, soundtrack, or Escape from LA's soundtrack, or even Spawn. Those all had like metal tracks all through them too.
That'd be a great future discussion.
Well, one thing I thought, yeah, you were going to talk about, Matt, is when you said The Crow. I know White Zombie had a lead-off single, the not More Human Than Human, but the other one. I don't know if anyone can fill me in if you can remember which one I'm talking about there. On the Crow 2 soundtrack, I'm Your Boogeyman.
There you go.
Yeah, it was, I'm Your Boogeyman was like a big single for that movie. And I remember the music video, coming out and all that kind of stuff. And, that's still a cool song that I probably don't check out as much. I kind of forget about that song from time to time. I don't know if anyone else kind of remembers that song, that I'm Your Boogeyman song.
I love that song. That song is phenomenal.
And I guess actually, well, it's going to be no surprise, but my number one pick, Hellbilly Deluxe. And I was kind of just hoping to save my little story about how I kind of got into that album and things like that. And I believe that album's 1998, and you got to think this is almost, the internet was around, but maybe in certain parts of the world, depending on where you are, various whatever things, the internet wasn't fully developed. The internet wasn't fully around in every single household at that point. And I'm not sure if I had the internet. I'm not sure if our family even had the internet at that time. And I think it was one of those things where I had some White Zombie on tape. I had Super Sexy Swingin' Sounds on tape. And then, you kind of just hear through rumors or whatever that the White Zombie split up, and whatever, a couple of years passes, and the White Zombie's gone, and that, and again, with the internet, you're not getting the news as quickly as you are nowadays, right? So I vividly remember this. It was one of those situations where I was it was like a weekend. It was kind of just going out with the parents on the weekend, just going to eat, a family breakfast, and we happened to go eat at a restaurant located in the mall. And obviously, me, I'm getting my head fully into rock and metal by that stage. Transitioning from tapes to CDs. Around 95, 96 and things like that. So, a couple years go passes, and anyway, so after I go eat this meal, this breakfast meal, I'm a little toddler, younger kid there at the time, and so I browsed down to the CD store, and I knew nothing about this. I had no idea that Rob Zombie was going solo because the internet information wasn't prevalent. So I remember just strolling into that CD shop, and the Rob Zombie Hellbilly Deluxe. You cannot miss that album cover. And I was familiar with Rob Zombie from White Zombie, so immediately I see Zombie. What is this? Instant buy, and you buy that, you get it home, you play it, and immediately you're falling in love with it because it's hard to deny the vibe, the personality, everything that he's got going on, the monster, the horror themes, the kind of dark, really dark theme, like the dark music, like the tone of the guitars, just everything in general is really dark about it. Kind of mixed in, he's not taking himself too seriously. There's a little bit of fun aspect, but in general, it's a pretty dark, heavy album, and yeah, it's one of those things where you play that as a young kid, and you're fully on board. You're in love basically, and that's probably why most of us have that number one. Uh, yeah, I definitely vividly remember that. And actually, another thing, before I tell away with someone else here is another thing I remember is playing Twisted Metal. I don't know if anyone
Yeah.
remembers that game, right? So Twisted Metal on PlayStation One, I think Rob Zombie had a couple tracks on that, and specifically the end boss. You're playing that final end boss, and the demonoid phenomenon just keeps replaying over and over. So you're trying to beat this end boss, and demonoid phenomenon's playing over and over, and you're just loving it, right? You're killing these little vehicles, right? You're trying to beat the end boss and things like that, and Rob Zombie soundtracks playing in the background. Great stuff, eh?
Awesome.
Did anyone ever play that Twisted Metal or remember that? Yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
yeah, awesome, cool. And yeah, I don't know if anyone's got any last little things to say about Rob Zombie. Oh, actually, well, maybe to keep riffing here about. Has everyone seen Rob Zombie live?
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
seen Rob Zombie one time.
Oh, Clint, you did see Rob Zombie. Okay, yeah, nice. And
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him like right after he got done. He was promoting the Devil's Rejects at the time, and I saw him at Ozfest. That's why at the time, Zombie wasn't my favorite. At the time, he was my favorite. Then after I saw him live, I was like Disgraced. I saw him with, it was Ozfest, and like the first time I saw In Flames, and that's whenever In Flames just blew Zombie out of the water. Because like Zombie was complaining it was too hot outside, his shoes were melting, the stage was melting. I think he was on some acid because he didn't even sing. He even he even threw his microphone down and was like, I forget my. And so I was kind of irritated. I was like, okay, I came here to see my favorite artist and I got nothing. But I remember like the coolest thing that happened at the show, he started throwing out beach balls that said the Devil's Rejects on it. And a handful of them had autographs on them. I wish I still had it. I had one, but I caught one of the balls that actually had the autograph on it. But it made me mad. After a couple of years, it was on a beach ball. That kind of autograph kind of dissipated.
Yeah.
oh wow, yeah,
Yes.
that's too bad you still don't have that.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys see him for the 20 Years of Zombie tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was really crazy where he at the end of it he walks into the crowd on stilts, wasn't it? Like low stilts or a low riser. And then he let everyone put their hands on him, and he finished the show with all of our hands on him. It was really weird. It was really awesome.
Oh, because I saw him on the 20 years at Ozfest 2005 at Auburn, Washington, and
Yeah.
it was stripped down version of his show on the second stage. And I thought the show was great, other than it drove me nuts the sing along with Rob Zombie every like 30 seconds
Right.
almost. I'm like, I'm paying to watch you, really. I don't want to hear all these, the drunk guy next to me screaming. Like, sure, it's fun, the odd song here and there, but when he's doing it all the time, just drove me nuts.
Yep. Yeah, that's what happened at the Ozfest. Whenever I saw him, every song he wanted everybody to sing lyrics. He only sang like the name of the song, and then
Yeah,
he'd be like, "Yep,
totally.
I think he's always been like that. Yeah, actually going back to like his White Zombie years, I used to listen to a bunch of bootlegs and live recordings and things like that. He's always been like that in general. To be honest, it's not like Rob Zombie has a super talented voice, right? You know what I mean? He's kind of just more of let's do it, let's get her done sort of thing, serviceable type. So it's not like he's a super talented high octave singer, you know what I mean? So I think that's where some of that comes in, where live he's running around, he's catching his breath, things like that. He's kind of just developed into more of a for the fans type of guy, as opposed to trying to hit the high notes and things like that and try to be perfect. I think he's more just like, oh, okay, let's, whatever. If the fans have fun, whatever, I'm good with it. I think it's kind of his thing. Obviously, the last couple of years, or in general, he always wants to do a big show and things like that. So he's always got the big show. I'm not sure if I've seen him any time. Well, I did see him that one time last couple of years ago where he did have the big stage show and things like that. So actually, that's why I was interested to hear Jody when you were saying that you seen him at Ozfest and the second stage. That's interesting that he was on the second stage.
Yeah, he headlined the second stage that year.
yep."
Oh, yeah, wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting because yeah, no, I seen Rob Zombie Ozfest 2002, and yeah, he was main stage for sure.
Yeah, when I saw him, he was headlining the second stage. It must have been the same year, Jody, that we saw him.
Yeah, 2005.
Yeah, that's when I saw him too. It was just like right before the Devil's Rejects came out.
Yep. Yeah, I
And
got a
like
pin.
it was like right before he got done playing. I was excited for him because like right before was I want to say Behemoth and Hatebreed were like right before, and I was like, holy crap, man, now my favorite's about to play. And like I was so let down because like yeah, when I saw him, he just talked the whole time, and then he literally like sat on stage and talked about the movie. Go see it for like 10 minutes.
To be fair, Clint, no one should ever follow Behemoth. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, that
I
is
mean, I've seen Slipknot with Behemoth last year, or not last year. I guess it's been a couple more years than that because last year, because of COVID, I forgot. Back maybe 3 years ago, you
Gnarly.
know? Yeah, it was Gojira, Behemoth, Volbeat, and Slipknot.
oh, tight lineup. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting to hear that. I guess Sharon's calling the shots at Ozfest, so it's interesting that she knows that Rob Zombie's a huge act, and it's just surprising that she put him on the second stage. I don't really have a reason of why she would do that, or if anyone has any other guesses, but yeah. Hmm. But yeah,
But Jamie, at Ozfest every year they get a really, really, really big band that headline the second stage. Because the year before that, Subliminal Verses by Slipknot came out, and Slipknot was the headliner on the second stage.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Cool, cool. Well, if I guess it kind of seems like we're winding down here. Everyone's got their everyone kind of put in their bits, and we said what we got to say, and I think we'll kind of wind down the show here. If anyone's got any last little things they want to say or anything, or if anything they're looking forward to Rob Zombie in the future. Obviously, his new album just came out, a year, not even a year ago, but roughly a year ago. And so I'm sure he's kind of already thinking of, I'm sure he's starting to think about his next album. So if anyone's got any expectations on maybe a potential next Rob Zombie album or anything like that.
He is extremely busy filming the Munsters for at least 2 years, I would imagine.
Right. I've kind of just casually seen, that has his cast picked out, and there's been some leaked photos or whatever of the cast of what they look like and things like that. And I know people are pretty hyped on that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess, yeah.
Like how, on that note, if we want to discuss what is everybody's opinion of the cast of the new Monsters. I honestly, personally wish he'd have gotten somebody else to be the mom than Sherry. I think Sherry should have played like maybe the aunt that was the blonde one that lived next to him. That was like her, that actually looked human. I think that would have fit Sherry's character better. He needed, I think, a more extinguished actor that's a little more serious to play. I forget her name, the Mama Monster. I think he should have gotten somebody else to play her, but that's just my opinion.
Oh, that's cool to see. I wasn't super familiar with who was actually casted specifically. I'm not that great with actors, especially all these new actors coming out a little out of touch. But it's cool to see that Sherry Moon is going to be in that in some sort of fashion as a main character. But I guess with that,
yeah, the main character with my bad. The one that's gonna be playing.
Oh, sorry. Did you want to continue, or did you finish what you wanted to?
I was just gonna say, like the one that's playing the main, monster, the dad is Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, okay.
That's surprising.
Okay, cool. I think we should kind of wrap the show up. I have no idea how long we've gone, but anyway, cool. Thanks everyone for watching. Be on the lookout for future content. Subscribe, mosh, and see you later.
Not everybody. Peace out.